Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Shalom, Om Swastiastu, Namo Buddhaya, salam kebajikan, good afternoon, selamat siang semuanya. Yang terhormat kepada para narasumber dan juga moderator, historian and director of Tricontinental Institute for Social Research, Mr. Vijay Prashad. Welcome Mr. Vijay. It's our pleasure to have you here. Dan hadir juga di tengah-tengah kita anggota DPR dari fraksi PDI Perjuangan dan juga merupakan sejarawan Bapak Hilmar Farid. Selamat siang Bapak. Sejarawan sekaligus moderator kita pada hari ini. Hadir juga di tengah-tengah kita Bapak Hilmar Farid. Dan juga tentunya saya ingin mengucapkan selamat datang. Senang sekali melihat antusiasme yang luar biasa dari para rekan akademisi, budayawan, mahasiswa. Tamu undangan yang tidak dapat saya sebutkan satu persatu tanpa mengurangi rasa hormat saya. Welcome to Teater Besar Taman Ismail Marzuki. My name is Habsya Arafa and I will be your master of ceremony for today. Today, we gather to reflect on the Bandung spirit, which began at the Asian African Conference in 1955, sebuah momentum penting ketika negara-negara Asia dan Afrika bersatu melawan kolonialisme dan memperjuangkan dunia yang lebih adil. Di tengah berbagai krisis global saat ini, konflik geopolitik, ketidakstabilan ekonomi, perubahan iklim, dan ketimpangan, semangat tersebut menjadi semakin relevan. This event invites us to rethink how countries in the global south can work together again in solidarity. So, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to our public lecture titled The Bandung Spirit, Reviving Global South Solidarity in a Time of Crisis. Boleh kita berikan tepuk tangan yang meriah Bapak Ibu semuanya untuk acara yang luar biasa pada hari ini. Dan untuk menyambut kehadiran Bapak Ibu semuanya sekaligus ingin mengapresiasi semangat yang dibawa pada siang hari ini. Untuk Bapak Ibu semuanya sudah meluangkan waktunya untuk sama-sama kita kembali memperdalam ilmu sejarah kita tentunya. Untuk membawa kembali semangat menghadapi fakta sosial yang ada di Indonesia pada saat ini. Seperti halnya semangat Bandung. Nilai-nilai perjuangan dan solidaritas dapat diwujudkan melalui berbagai cara. Salah satunya adalah seni. Maka dari itu kita akan sama-sama menyaksikan penampilan pembuka yang pada kali ini bukan sekedar pertunjukan musik tetapi juga sebuah bentuk aktivisme. So, please enjoy a special music performance by Usman and the Blackstones featuring Gugun Blue Shelters.
Ini mikrofon tadi tidak berfungsi seperti sidang pleno pertamanya Boni di DPR RI. Selamat siang teman-teman semua. Apa kabar? Tidak ada suaranya. Apa kabar? Terima kasih. Terima kasih juga buat Historia, Boni, untuk penerbit GDN, penerbit margin kiri, dan margin-margin lainnya. Juga Megawati Institute, dan tentu saja Vijay Prashad, welcome to Jakarta. Here we are, Usman and the Blackstones, featuring Gugun and the Blue Shelter. Please give round of applause. this song is dedicated to the survivors of past human rights abuses. Started from 1965 to 1998. The survivors were the victims of cruel regimes after throwing down Sukarno's administration. Sukarno was the latest Asia-African conference that was toppled down by the Western power, by the America, followed by Salvador Allende, and also started with other leaders such as Patrice Lumumba, Jean Gillard, and many other great leaders in Asia and African conference. Payung Hitam. Telah ku tegakkan payung-payung hitam, bukan tanda duka yang kelam. Telah ku tegakkan payung-payung hitam, itu tanda menyala api cinta, jiwa yang tak padam. Padam api cinta, jiwaku yang melawan. Aku diam untuk melawan. In silence we resist. Aku diam untuk melawan. In noble silence we resist. Aku diam untuk Jika rakyat pergi, ketika penguasa pidato, kita harus hati-hati. Barangkali mereka putus asa. Kalau rakyat bersembunyi dan berbisik-bisik ketika membicarakan masalahnya sendiri, penguasa harus waspada dan belajar mendengar. Bila rakyat tidak berani mengeluh, itu artinya sudah gawat. Dan bila omongan penguasa tidak boleh dibantah, kebenaran pasti terancam. Apabila usul ditolak tanpa ditimbang, suara dibungkam, kritik dilarang tanpa alasan, dituduh subversif dan mengganggu keamanan, maka hanya ada satu kata. Apa itu kawan-kawan? Lawan. Hei manusia, untuk apa kau di dermaga? Hei manusia, untuk apa kau di istana? Hei berlayarlah, bentangkanlah neraca keadilan.
If Sukarno is still alive, if Nehru is still alive, if Gamal Abdel Nasser is still alive, if Zhou Enlai is still alive, and if they are organizing Asia-African Conference today, they're going to talk about climate change. They're going to talk about rain that is being cut down by populist regime, by the capitalist regime, by the pro-Western economy regimes. Here, the second song, Rain, that we wrote for all of the climate defenders across the world. Darah bercampur bangkai aroma nusuk yang memualkan di antara pepohonan kelapa liang-liang terisi. Rain falls onto real life, to the ends of silence. Thank you. The third song is dedicated to bad politicians. We do have a lot of bad politicians, and all of the politicians are bad except Boni Triyana. Let's give a round of applause to Gugun and Gugun Blue Shelter, bad politician.
Put your hands up together, come on. to their mind without a fee. Bad politicians walk to their mind without a fee. You can expect loyalty, you can predict trustworthy. We can deny solicitation, we can refuse. We would do anything for money. Woo! Bad politician telling lies on honesty. Bad politician, we don't need your exercises. Yeah. You can expect loyalty, you can predict trustworthy. We can deny solicitation, we can refuse. We won't do anything for money. Oh yeah.
Tulang-tulang remuk, gapai yang bertahan. Para diktator yang arif berbicara dengan gelas anggur, kerah, dan kepingan emas. Istana mungil bersinar laksana arloji, dan tawa mereka yang parlente ada kalanya melintas di seluruh koridor untuk berbaur dengan suara yang binasa. Dan mayat yang baru dikubur, isak tangis tersembunyi bagai
Bad
tanaman.
politician, the way you speak and no solution. Bad politician, we don't need your contribution. Yeah. You can expect loyalty, you can predict trustworthy. We can deny solicitation, we can refuse. We won't do anything for money.
Untuk berbaur dengan suara yang binasa dan mayat yang baru dikubur, isak tangis tersembunyi bagai tanaman yang benihnya jatuh tiada henti ke tanah dan membuat dedaunannya tumbuh tanpa cahaya. Kebencian telah terpupuk sedikit demi sedikit, kudeta demi kudeta dalam air rawa yang mengerikan dengan moncong penuh lembung dan kesunyian.
Thank you so much.
Orang bilang musik rock hanya untuk laki-laki. Saya kira itu salah. Kita panggilkan seniman-seniman perempuan dari Senandung Murka. Perkenalan. Nina aja.
Selamat siang semuanya. Perkenalkan, kita dari Senandung Murka. Kita akan membawakan lagu yang berkolaborasi dengan Usman and the Blackstone. Saya sendiri Nina.
Nama saya Wara, dan di sebelah sini ada Patricia.
Patricia ini mahasiswi IKJ, cuman beda 2 angkatan sama saya. Ini kolaborasi lagu baru dan akan dirilis besok pada hari Kartini. Karena perempuan berperan di dalam pembebasan nasional maupun pembebasan sosial di Indonesia dan di seluruh dunia.
bilang kita satu bangsa, tapi mengapa tingkahmu serupa dengan bangsa? Kau memang pengkhianat hebat yang bersandiwara dengan akal sehat. Tolong aku di sini, tolong perih ini sungguh perih. Kita sama, tapi mengapa kita sama? Tapi anak darahku direbut paksa. Oh, tolong.
Senandung Murka, tepuk tangan untuk mereka. The next song is the most difficult song. It is the song composed by a very genuine guy called Sudarnoto. He's a musician, he's a composer, he has a very unique background, a medical background, a person who has studied kedokteran in the University of Indonesia, but then he decided to play music, compose music. He's the one who composed Garuda Pancasila that we sing almost every day at school. Sudarnoto's life has been forgotten. Hersri Setiawan, suami Ibu Ita Nadia, telah menulis tentang Sudarnoto, mengingat kebaikan, kehebatan Sudarnoto, dan juga teman-teman seperti Muhyiddin dan juga Historia menulis tentang Sudarnoto yang hidupnya tragis.
dia menjadi supir taksi, dia kemudian mengamen di restoran, dan nasibnya hingga hari ini tidak diperhatikan oleh negara. Mudah-mudahan kami bisa menyanyikannya, karena lagu ini menggunakan notasi musik kelas dunia, judulnya Asia Afrika Bersatu.
Sambut bersama Asia Afrika telah bersatu. Berkibarlah padi kita, kita hormati Ibu Pertiwi. Dari gurun Gobi Gangga Irawadi Sahara merdeka berjuang. Salam mobil mesti satu dan gembira. Hai merdeka. Alam bahagia kini telah tiba, bersatu berjuang Afro-Asia. Orang memilih sudah, moga hari berjaya gemilang, bawa cinta damai merdeka. Bergerak serentak, bangkit sambut bersama, Asia Afrika telah bersatu. Berkibarlah pagi kita, di peluru mati Bumi Pertiwi. Dari gurun Gobi Gangga Irawadi Sahara merdeka. Hurriyat berjuang. Zinzabat sambut salam Wopin Honsu sambut sanji gembira. Hai merdeka. Alam bahagia kini telah tiba, Asia berjuang Afro-Asia. Langit perang telah kini sudah, matahari berjaya gemilang, bawa cinta damai merdeka, bawa cinta damai merdeka. Merdeka! Ini yang enak PDIP, Megawati Institute. Boni, nyanyi Bon. Ini requestnya Boni, Asia Afrika. Bisa nggak lo bawain Asia Afrika? Ternyata lumayan lah. Last song, I think. Ya, bener gak? Okay, this is about our friends, our comrades, our fellow human rights defender, Munir Said Talib.
Aku ada dan berlipat ganda, 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 aku ada dan berlipat ganda. Terbayangkan, tak terfikirkan, aku dibentangkan dan dipaksa bungkam. Badai haru langsung menghujam. Aku diarsenkan, bengis komplotan, Ozi diledakkan, semua dialihkan. Langit haru, langit mencekam. bentangkan dan dipaksa bungkam. Badai haru langsung menghujam. Perjuangan tak lekang sampai penghabisan. Aku ada dan berlipat ganda. Aku ada dan berlipat ganda. Kita sudah lelah dengan kekerasan. Kita sudah lelah dengan kebohongan. Kita sudah lelah. Aku ada dan berlipat ganda. 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 Thank you so much, Historia, Margin Kiri, Megawati Institute, GDN. And again, welcome Vijay Prashad. I really hope that you can inspire us to create a movement for positive Indonesia, for a better Indonesia, and for a new, better world. Thank you so much. Sampai ketemu lagi.
Oke, boleh kita berikan tepuk tangan sekali lagi untuk Usman and the Blackstones featuring Gugun, Blue Shelters. Hadirin yang berbahagia, Bapak Ibu tamu undangan yang saya hormati, kembali saya ingin mengingatkan bahwa hari ini adalah hari yang luar biasa. Penampilan tadi juga sekaligus mengingatkan kita bahwa music is not always just about entertainment. Sometimes it carries a message, sometimes it becomes a form of resistance and a voice for change. Di hari yang berbahagia ini, kita akan sama-sama membahas topik yang sangat luar biasa. Dengan narasumber kita ada Mr. Vijay Prashad dan juga anggota DPR dari fraksi PDI Perjuangan Bapak Boni Triyana. Izin Bapak Boni Triyana yang nanti juga akan memberikan kita pengantar introduction session. Dan nantinya sesi setelah Pak Boni akan dipimpin oleh moderator kita yang sangat luar biasa yaitu Bapak Hilmar Farid. Acara pada hari ini tentunya tidak dapat berjalan lancar tanpa adanya dukungan dari Wakil Gubernur DKI Jakarta Bapak Rano Karno. Boleh kita berikan tepuk tangan Bapak Ibu semuanya. Megawati Institute, Margin Kiri, GDN Press dan juga Historia.id. Boleh sekali lagi beri tepuk tangan ya Bapak Ibu semua. Acara ini sudah berlangsung sebetulnya sejak kemarin ya Pak ya, dari hari Minggu kemarin membawa tema yang sangat besar. The Bandung Spirit Reviving Global South Solidarity in a Time of Crisis. Dan pada hari ini secara lebih spesifik kita akan sama-sama membahas The Global South Today. Crisis, Resistance, and New Possibilities. Sebelum kita masuk ke sesi berikutnya, Bapak Ibu teman-teman semua. Izinkan saya mengajak kita semua untuk membayangkan sejenak. 70 tahun yang lalu di kota Bandung, para pemimpin dari Asia dan Afrika berkumpul dalam satu ruangan. Leaders from Asia and Africa gather in one room. They didn't come as powerful nations. They came with shared memories of struggle, of resistance, and of hope. Dan dari pertemuan itu, lahirlah sesuatu yang lebih besar. Dari sekedar konferensi. Lahir sebuah semangat bahwa negara-negara Global South bisa berdiri bersama, memiliki suara sendiri, dan menentukan arah dunia. Semangat itu, semangat bahwa negara-negara Global South bisa berdiri bersama, harus kita bawa hari ini. And today, we are living in a very different time. Walaupun kita hidup sudah sangat jauh dari konferensi Asia Afrika pada saat itu, but in many ways, the challenges feel familiar. The conflicts, inequality, and uncertainty about the future. So, the question is, does that spirit still live within us today? Apakah semangat itu masih hidup dalam diri kita hari ini? Inilah yang ingin kita refleksikan bersama. Bukan hanya melihat kembali sejarah, tetapi memahami Global South sebagai sebuah visi bersama. Dan bagaimana kita terutama generasi hari ini bisa melanjutkan semangat tersebut. Untuk itu, untuk membuka perspektif kita bersama pada hari ini, marilah kita masuk ke sesi pengantar or introduction session yang pada kesempatan kali ini akan disampaikan oleh sejarawan dan juga anggota DPR dari fraksi PDI Perjuangan. Ladies and gentlemen, boleh kita berikan tepuk tangan yang paling meriah. Please welcome Mr. Boni Triyana. Disilakan untuk naik ke atas panggung.
Oke, thank you. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Terima kasih atas kehadiran kawan-kawan semua. Yang saya hormati kawan-kawan mahasiswa hadirin yang sudah hadir di sini. Di belakang sana saya lihat ada Excellency Todung Mulia Lubis, kemudian ada Profesor Sulis dari UI, ada Excellency Ikrar Nusa Bakti, Excellency Heri Ahmadi, saya panggil Excellency karena duta besar semua. Kemudian juga ada Pak Wasake Puja, Pak ini comrade in arm saya dalam urusan repatriasi. Ada Pak Aspi, Mbak Ita, ada Bung Roni Talapesi, ada Bang Helmi, Mbak Ning. Tepuk tangan untuk yang hadir, orang-orang hebat. Dan Pak Marzuki Darusman, Jaksa Agung periode 2000-2001 ya Pak, kalau saya nggak salah. Atau 99 Pak, ya anggap aja benar Pak. By the way, thank you Vijay for your coming. I'm very happy to have you here. I need this text, otherwise I will lose. Vijay, on behalf of Megawati Institute, Historia.id, margin kiri, and GDN Press, I would like to say highly appreciate to you. Because of you, we can, hear your experience, your knowledge about the global south, and then of course about your book, The Darker Nation. That's a very important book. And then I really enjoy listening your speech yesterday in Bandung through live streaming. Vijay and honorable guests, Indonesia independence would never have been achieved without international activism networks. Since the early of 20th century, leaders, the Indonesian anti-colonial movement have strong ties with many activists from various countries. I cannot list all those names one by one, but there is one of your compatriot, Vijay, whom you may also know, M.N. Roy, Manabendra Nath Roy. He is a true revolutionary, I would say professional revolutionary from India who visited Java in 1915 and stayed here for 2 months to seek financial aid and weapons, armament. He used that aid to fight the British colonial government in India, and I found first his name when I did the research about Tan Malaka. And the two of them, often communicate by letter. It would have been easier for them to communicate if internet already invented at the time, of course. But it wasn't just M.N. Roy. After the Bandung conference, the young Lahdar Brahimi, who later became Algeria's Minister of Foreign Affairs and Deputy Secretary General of Arab League, also settled in Jakarta from 1956 until 1961 to lead the National Liberation Front of Algeria in Jakarta, while his country was still under French colonial rule. It is clear that international networks between Asia and Africa had long been established and reached its peak in 1955. As we all know, internationalist movement also emerged from that time onward. Cooperation occurred not only at the government-to-government level, but also extended to the grassroots level, where activists play a crucial role at that time. But the question is, has the world we are experiencing today has changed since the end of the Second World War? Colonialism may have ended, but coloniality, as once defined by Peruvian sociologist Aníbal Quijano, continues to this day. Imperialist domination continues to operate in new form through the exploitation of natural resources, through the production of knowledge, European-centric production of knowledge, and the dichotomies of the West and the East, and now the North and the South. I think it is also important to decolonize our daily language. Sometimes we use certain terms that actually produced by colonial. And I think we have to not only to decolonize the politics, but also decolonize our language. And PJ, I don't want to steal your stage today. Please enlighten us about the world today and how Indonesian could take important role in making the world anew. Bapak, Ibu sekalian, hari ini kita akan menyimak, ada kawan-kawan mahasiswa juga. Hari ini kita akan menyimak Vijay Prashad, seorang intelektual terkemuka yang karyanya sangat penting untuk kita memahami dunia sejak paling tidak Perang Dunia berakhir. Dan dari Vijay kita akan menyimak bagaimana sebetulnya posisi Indonesia dalam krisis geopolitik sekarang dan apa yang terjadi dengan invasi Amerika Serikat plus Israel terhadap Iran dan begitu banyak dinamika yang terjadi akhir-akhir ini dan apa relevansi Asia Afrika. Saya ingin sedikit cerita, kita menjalani satu pilihan untuk menjalankan politik diplomasi bebas aktif, yang artinya bukan netral sebetulnya. Zaman Bung Karno kita sudah tahu banyak bagaimana sikap politik bebas aktif ketika Ibu Megawati Soekarno Putri menjadi presiden dengan sangat tegas menolak invasi Amerika Serikat terhadap Irak dan menolak ekstradisi Abu Bakar Ba'asyir ke Guantanamo. Dibentuk dari perlawanan dominasi Amerika itu ditunjukkan dengan sikap pemerintah untuk menolak keinginan Amerika Serikat terhadap politik terhadap politik Republik Indonesia waktu itu dengan sikap yang clear jelas, tidak tidak terombang-ambing oleh kepentingan-kepentingan yang saya kira terlalu pendek sifatnya. Mungkin dari saya terima kasih. Di sini juga hadir ada 200 mahasiswa yang datang dari dapil saya, dari kampung halaman saya. Tepuk tangan untuk teman-teman dari Universitas Setiabudi. Ini universitas namanya Setiabudi, ini diambil dari nama Ernest Dawes Dekker, cucu dari Multatuli, Edward Dawes Dekker. Thank you Vijay. One more time, I'm very honored to have you here today. Thank you, and Pak Hilmar Farid juga terima kasih. Terima kasih dan tepuk tangan untuk kita semua. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Merdeka!
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Terima kasih banyak Bapak Boni Triyana atas introduction-nya, sangat insightful sekali. Baik, Bapak Ibu tamu undangan yang kami hormati. Now we move on to the main session, the public lecture. The session will be moderated by Hilmar Farid yang merupakan seorang sejarawan and will feature our speaker, Vijay Prashad, historian and director of Continental Institute for Social Research on the backstage earlier. Kalau saya boleh cerita sedikit ya, 5 minutes before the event started, Mr. Vijay said something to me. Tiba-tiba saya mau izin, Mr. Vijay, saya ingin ke panggung terlebih dahulu ya. Mr. Vijay bilang, so you're the MC. Do you know what's MC mean? And I replied to him, yes. MC is Master of Ceremony, betul kan ya Bapak Ibu ya? Master of Ceremony, and I'm the MC for today. That's why I need to go to the stage right now, and I'll see you there later. But then, he said, no, MC is Master of Comedy katanya. You should prepare some jokes before you're heading to the stage, kata Pak Vijay, gitu. And then he continued introduce me to everyone that I'm the master of comedy, that I should be funny. But I'm sorry Mr. J, I can prepare a last minute jokes, but I can prepare you a pantun. Jadi mohon izin, Pak Boni izin ya, mohon izin Bapak Ibu semuanya. Biar saya terkesan lucu, master of comedy, saya ingin menyambut dengan pantun boleh? Dijawab cakep ya, cakep. Main ke Jakarta naik angkutan umum. Ketemu singa punya si Alshad. Mari kita simak kuliah umum with one and only Vijay Prashad. Ladies and gentlemen, give your big warm of applause for Mr. Vijay Prashad dan Bapak Hilmar Farid. Disilakan untuk naik ke atas panggung.
Baik, selamat sore semuanya. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Salam sejahtera untuk kita semua. Ini saya mau mengantar sedikit saja. Judulnya Public Lecture. Ya, dan kemarin Vijay sudah bicara di Museum Asia Afrika di Bandung. Suaranya hampir habis. Ya, karena oratorial skill-nya memang luar biasa. Jadi sore ini kita mau pakai format yang berbeda sedikit. Kita akan ngobrol kira-kira 40-45 menit. Setelah itu kita akan diskusi ya. Jadi silahkan nanti bertanya. Percakapan dalam bahasa Inggris, tapi nanti silahkan bertanya di dalam bahasa Indonesia juga diperkenankan. So we're going to take a different form than yesterday. Because yesterday you almost lost your voice. So, but thank you Vijay for coming and being with us here. I think many of us here have read your books. I have 3 of your books. Tomorrow I'm going to ask for you to sign the books. And let me start with this. I mean, many of us have been following the news, right? The crisis in Gaza. Our tears have not dried up yet, and there is Iran. And then you have news about the global economic crisis and the impact that it may have on Indonesia, or will certainly have on Indonesia, the rise of fuel prices and whatnot, right? Up to the point where we think it's too overwhelming, right? I mean, so many news are coming in, so many different analysis, explanations about what is going on. But I think many of us ended up being confused. And you can see that through the reaction that we have in public. Yeah? Statements, like public statements by people, social media and whatnot. So question to you is, like, how do you organize reality in your head? I mean, there are so many things coming in, but it seems you always have a way to place that in the right place and then give a response that would help you also to understand, help us to understand things better. So, yeah. Okay. So, and then we'll start from there, and then we'll continue discussion. And we are asked just to stand up because they want to change the chairs for some reason. Okay.
Oh,
that's
no, that's why. That's why. It's a trick chair.
Right.
Okay.
Okay, please, Vijay.
Well, firstly, it's amazing to be here. And secondly, I'm sorry that my Indonesian is 0. It's a problem for international communication that in the end of the day, we have to go to our default languages. I'm sorry about that. You know, in a way, the world isn't so confusing. There are crises, many of them, but they can be quite straightforwardly understood. 2 years ago, in our institute, Tricontinental, we published a text called Hyper-Imperialism, a decadent, what a phrase, a decadent, that word is very resonant, I'll come back to it, a decadent and dangerous phase. Now, it's interesting, we put this out 2 years ago, in 2024. And the argument we made in it is that since the world financial crisis of 2007-2008, United States and its allies in the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, in NATO, have been quite concerned about the rise economically of Asia. Now, this concern is interesting. You see, firstly, in the 1990s, they came to us after the Asian financial crisis and said, you should open your economies. We're going to bring our factories to you. You're going to produce the goods, and we're going to buy them. That was the bargain they made with us. They called it globalization. So we said, okay, Indonesia, Bangladesh, India, China, all the countries said, build your factories here and put your investment here and we'll sell you the final product. You can do whatever you want over there. It turned out very badly for the West. Their economies began to tank. Their billionaires were not investing the money back into the United States and Europe and so on. So Asian countries saw a big boost, and we began to become the most dynamic centers of world politics. In the center of this was China. They began to fear the rise of China. And the idea was, let's hem in China. So they put an unbelievable amount of resources, almost $1.5 trillion a year on their military to try to force China to back down from its economic model. And they wrote it in their reports and put it online. We didn't have to guess about it. Now, this was a very bad bet made by the United States and its allies. They felt that through military force and through essentially communication force, the news media, they could get countries like China and then those that were beginning to get into the big Asian boost, including Indonesia, to get them to go back to where they were. In other words, labor. Don't build your capital. There should be no capital formation in your countries. You should just be the workshop of the world. So, in order to get us to back down, we saw an increasing belligerence, more military bases around China and so on. Well, countries began to associate with China and to take refuge in the fact that the world had changed. In our institute, we call it the new mood in the global south. Countries began to say, we are not following the International Monetary Fund. We're going to go in our own direction. We're not going to sell you unprocessed nickel. We're going to start a debate about processing nickel and so on. And it's then that US belligerence really gets going. They first try to intimidate China. China doesn't get intimidated. Then you have the tariff policy, trying to kneecap countries that are not associating with the West. He comes to Anwar Ibrahim in Malaysia, says, give me your money. Goes to South Korea, give me your money. Like an extortionist, Mr. Trump goes through the countries, comes to Indonesia, give me your money, give me your airspace, otherwise I'll take care of you. In a way, the war against Iran is a war against disobedience. Iran disobeys the United States. If you disobey the United States today, you have to pay the price. Iran is disobedient. Cuba is disobedient. Venezuela is disobedient. Our countries in Asia, India, Indonesia, South Korea, we are too scared to be disobedient. Why are we so scared to be disobedient? Why aren't we thinking about the national interests of Indonesia first? The national interests of India? The national interests of Malaysia? So when you say there are many crises, I would say that's true. When you say that sometimes we feel confused, I would say don't be confused. I would say rather than be confused, build up our confidence in ourselves. The issue isn't clarity. I think we have clarity. We all know what's going on. We know that the United States and Israel are both behind the genocide in Gaza. We are not confused about that. But we don't have confidence to say, stop it.
So what I get is that you are saying that, and you've been saying this, of course, right? Imperialism hasn't ended. It takes different forms. But back in the 1990s, I think we remember, right? I mean, the domination was kind of like concealed, right? With the language of liberalism, human rights, and whatnot, right? But now it seems that it has shifted already. Yeah? Imperialism is back in a naked form, using like very harsh language. So what do you make of that? I mean, are you saying that since there are symptoms that the global South is now like awakening, and like you have movements here and there, governments are taking like more independent, autonomous policies. Are you saying that is response to that? Or is it just like they are tired and now they want to go back to the old days of 19th century imperialism?
Well, it's interesting. In the 1990s, so that's now 30-some years ago, when the United States was talking about human rights and democracy promotion was the phrase. They would come and teach classes on how to be democratic. Thanks a lot for that. I mean, you are the ones who initiated military governments in so many parts of the third world. You are the ones who pushed for the military to come and overthrow democratic governments. For God's sake, you are the one who overthrew the democratic government in Iran and installed a king, a Shah. It was the United States. Now you are coming to teach us about democracy? very confusing. At the time, and I'm not saying anything about Indonesia, you notice that. My example is Iran. You have to fill in the blanks. I expect you all to fill in the blanks of a lot of things I'm saying. I'm a guest in Indonesia, so I'm respectful of your historical choices. You see, were those choices? I respect your choices. They came and told us do this, and then they come back 30 years later and say, no, do the opposite. Make up your mind, for God's sake. Are we ready for democracy? Remember when the Dutch came back after 1945 and said, you're not ready for democracy? In Palestine, the British and French were saying, you're not ready for democracy, you're still children. After World War I, they said there will be a mandate. There will be a mandate. Why? The mandatory power is the adult. France and England are the adults, the Palestinians are children. And then in the middle of that, they said, we're going to send a whole bunch of Europeans who we don't like in Europe to live here with you and create problems for you. Bingo, Israel. The Europeans that the Europeans didn't like, they sent to Palestine, and now they are giving them bombs to kill the Palestinians. The Europeans can't make up their minds about anything. Once you are children, then you must learn democracy. At that time, the New York Times columnist, Thomas Friedman, wrote a column in which he said that underneath the velvet glove of democracy is the iron fist of the military. It was an article he wrote in the 1990s in the New York Times. Underneath the velvet glove is the iron fist of the military. They never forgot the F-16. They continued to sell them to us. They continued to bring our generals to the United States to be trained, to teach them to be more loyal to the United States than to their own people. This very interesting development continued right through. They were coming and preaching democracy through USAID, through NGOs, through the Ford Foundation. Meanwhile, they were taking our generals to West Point to give them master's degrees in how they should be more loyal to the United States military than to the peasants of Indonesia. Very contradictory. So this iron fist never disappeared. As you quite rightly said, it was smoothed over, or in Thomas Friedman's words, a velvet glove was put on. But what you have now is desperation. You don't have a return to the 19th century as such. You have desperation. Donald Trump is desperate to make the United States relevant. The issue is the United States is no longer a relevant power in the world. It doesn't produce much new technology. It's losing out to China, to India, to other countries in Asia, to Japan, on the production of new technologies, the fastest trains in the world. Your whoosh train comes from China, it comes from Japan, not from the United States. The United States is very good at the military. It's very good at information management, the media. But it's not good in knowing what to do with raw materials. If the United States says to Indonesia, stop selling nickel to China, who are you going to sell nickel to? Who else is going? The United States is not going to buy it. They don't have any manufacturing. So they don't control raw materials. They don't control finance anymore. And look at what the Iranians have done. By saying that only those who are trading oil in yuan can leave the Gulf of Hormuz is a direct challenge to the petroleum dollar. Now, it's going to take a long time for the dollar to be put in jeopardy, but it's threatened. Yeah, they have threatened the United States with technology. You know, as I said, the train, but it's actually very advanced technology being produced in Asia. So they are threatened, they are trying to be relevant. Trump's tour of Asia APEC summit, ASEAN summit, and so on, and his threats to Indonesia were attempts to be relevant. And we should not buckle to them. We should stand up and say, let me think about this, Mr. Trump. You say, make America great again. You say America first. Okay, that's fine. But I want to say Indonesia first. I want to say, make Indonesia great again, as it was from 1945 to 1955. Make Indonesia great again. Yeah? So we don't want to agree to your proposal because your proposal is good for you. It's not good for us. In that sense, I would say that yes, it's true, they are getting more aggressive. But we should not mistake their aggression for strength. The Iranians have stood up to the United States and they've demonstrated how weak the United States is. Before the United States went to war against Iran, the Strait of Hormuz was completely open. The US and Israel attacked Iran. Then Iran restricted access to the Strait of Hormuz. Now the United States simply wants the Strait of Hormuz back open. But they are the ones who closed it. So what are they doing? They are struggling to be relevant. They don't have a strategy. We need a strategy to confront that. And the strategy, and I'm going to repeat this because I think it's important, the strategy needs our confidence. In order for us to have confidence, we have to know our history. You have to know how important it was for Indonesia to host the Asia-Africa Conference in 1955. That was such an important moment. We have to return to that moment in order to come back to the present. We have to have the confidence. When Sukarno stands up in Bandung and says, we are making history here. When Nehru says, Bandung is the capital of Asia and Africa, we have to take that seriously. The capital of Indonesia or the capital of Asia, Africa is not Washington, D.C. The capital is in Bandung. If not Bandung, it's in Jakarta, it's in New Delhi, it's in Beijing, but it's certainly not in Amsterdam. Forget Amsterdam. We are not able to get rid of that. London. The Chief Minister of West Bengal, Mamata Banerjee, once said, I want to make Calcutta like London. Why would you want to make Calcutta like London? Make Calcutta like Calcutta. We don't need to be saying Bandung is the Paris of the East. Paris is the Bandung of the East, of the West.
A very good message to the Vice Governor of Jakarta if he's present here. Because Jakarta is now like aiming for a global city, yeah. So point of reference would be normally like European capitals, but I think after this we will looking at inter-Asia or Asian African capitals for that. Bandung has been a point of reference in your writings. I mean, you keep returning to that. And I think it's a very important message that you bring that there are so many things that happened or was like Bandung opened a path to think about alternatives, right? But we know from the very beginning in 1955, it was not a united kind of like entity, right? You have differences. The representatives from Iran was sent by the Shah, and he was like very critical of the forum itself. And so was Turkey, Philippines under Romulo, and so on. The question is then, like, what lessons can we take from the experience in Bandung for us today?
So, going to the Bandung building, Merdeka, the hall, and on the wall seeing the Dasashila written was a very moving experience for me. The first thing I would do is, if I was the Minister of Education in Indonesia, when you enter, let's say, the 8th standard, class 8, I would give every 8th standard student the Dasashila to read. and I would make it a very nice card which they can keep for the rest of their life. And they refer to those 10 principles because I think those 10 principles are invaluable. And if you haven't read the Dasashila, I highly recommend it. Yeah, you can probably find it in the internet. If you can't find it in the internet, that's a shame. You should put it up there somewhere. Yeah, Dasashila. Yes, it's true. At Bandung, there were people like Sir John Kotalavala from Sri Lanka, a man of the right. Carlos Romolo from Philippines. There was Chou Enlai from China, a communist. Jawaharlal Nehru from India. Gamal Abdul Nasser, a military officer. A range of political views. You see, what's interesting is Bandung doesn't start at Bandung. The process starts earlier. In 1947, for instance, in New Delhi, India was just getting its independence. 13 million people had crossed the border. 1 million people died at that moment of our independence. My family came from Lahore, Pakistan to Delhi, India. At that time in Delhi, the Indian government held the Asian Relations Conference. Now this conference is very interesting. It's held in Delhi in the middle of violence. And the central theme of the conference was Indonesia. Why were the Dutch trying to recolonize Indonesia? They then meet in Sri Lanka, they meet in different places and start thinking we need to have unity among Asian countries, basically hands off Asia. Hands off Asia. In 1952, when Gamal Abdul Nasser has the coup d'etat against the king and establishes the government, new government in Egypt, extremely popular, they meet with Nehru and others. And Nasser is very interested in this development. That's how Africa comes in. It's, in fact, Egypt, and then Sudan, Libya, the Gold Coast and Liberia come as guests. When they come to Bandung, they are debating a couple of things that they all, in fact, agree upon. They all agree on the basic principle of sovereignty. Yeah, it's a basic principle. In fact, we don't have time to go into this, but in a sense, sovereignty by then itself was an old, anachronistic 17th century idea from the Treaty of Westphalia. But they understood sovereignty to mean no colonial rule. Dutch out, British out, French out, Portuguese out, and we don't want the Americans. This last part was a little controversial. We don't want the Americans because Iran, Philippines, and others had joined blocs, SEATO, CENTO. These blocs established military alliances with the United States. But they generally agreed with the principle of sovereignty. We don't want colonial powers. They also agreed with the general principle against racism. That we are also people. We also have the right to speak. We have the right to stand up at the United Nations and have an opinion. Indians, Arabs, Indonesians, Malaysians, we have the right to an opinion. We are not just subjects to be told what to do by the colonial powers. And because we have ideas against racism, we have ideas. Let's put our ideas on the table. For instance, we all believe that economic development must happen in our countries. What's actually interesting is in the days they spent in Bandung, they agreed on a lot of things. And I find, why I return to this is I find the fact that they came to agreements despite their political differences, I find that very important for today's world. Even if you don't agree with somebody, you should not condemn them to silence. I am very disappointed with so many of our countries where governments are trying to put laws that prevent speech, that say, this is against national security or something like that. We should have the courage of our convictions to discuss with people we don't agree. Because Bandung shows that people came there, didn't agree. What was the agreement between Chou En-lai and Carlos Romolo? Almost nothing. But they agreed on some principles. They agreed on the Dasashila. They agreed on the UN Charter. And they respected each other. See, that's the thing that in our third world that we are building today. We have to recognize the point about having the courage of our ideas, the courage of our convictions, and respecting people with whom we don't agree. Respect them, listen to, don't belittle them. Listen to them, disagree openly. Yeah? For instance, our relationship with, let's say, a government that believes in religious law. Okay, we don't need to agree with that, but we respect them. I today respect the Iranian people, and I respect what the Iranian government is doing in standing up to this aggression, this illegal aggression. I respect it wholeheartedly. I may not agree with everything that the government decides to do, but I respect the way they are standing up for their convictions wholeheartedly. 168 schoolgirls were killed in a city in Iran by the United States and Israel. Don't tell me that you are going to Iran to protect women's rights when you are killing schoolgirls. You can't say that anymore. It doesn't make sense.
Well, this is like a very important point, I think, right? I mean, you, as I said, like Bandung was not a united like entity. There were differences, and I think your response is that, like, let's deal with the differences, no? Continue the discussion. We've seen, I mean, we've been celebrating also, like, highlighting the positive side of Bandung. Question now is that, was it also the reason, the lack of the continuation of that kind of dialogue, the reason of its vulnerability? Because, like, then came the Cold War. I mean, immediately after 55, the US, for example, here in Indonesia, like, organized, like, different things to topple Sukarno, right? They succeeded in 1965, and then Chile in 1973, and so on. I mean, you know history. So, was it, how could Bandung have responded to that? Like, taking that spirit, like, what elements of it would have helped us to prevent all this, like, backlash that happened afterwards?
I mean, one interesting thing we saw when we were in the museum was a documentary. And in the documentary, there was a scene where Chou En-lai arrives, probably in Jakarta, in the airport. And the door of his plane opens. And in the door, there's a sign that says, "Long live India-China friendship." So he has landed in Indonesia. And his plane door says, "Long live India-China friendship." It's very important to ask why. Why does Chou En-lai have that sign on the door? Because India and China were already disputing territory in the northern part of India or in the western part of China, depending who you are. And eventually in 1962 went to war over that colonial border. A colonial border. Till today, Afghanistan and Pakistan have not agreed on the border. They don't have actually formal relations. India and Pakistan have not agreed on a border. India and China have not agreed on a border. It took some years for China and Burma to agree on a border. Indonesia has its own problems with its borders. Yeah? Only 10 years ago, Russia and China agreed on their border. What is wrong with us? We have our own internal weaknesses. We still squabble with each other. Look at the squabbles in the South China Sea, Philippines and China over where is your sea lane end and so on. What are we talking about? India and Pakistan, tiny little part of the disputed line. The rest of the border is quite clear. Yeah? We are internally weak as well. You know, the ants don't come into your kitchen through the front door. They come through the cracks. So we open the cracks. for them to enter. You see, look at Indonesia. There were cracks here, and the ants entered. The Australians, don't forget the Australians. The United States, Australia, they enter through the cracks. We allowed them. We have to be careful about that. We need to strengthen our unities. You want to build a new Asia? I want to build a new Asia. I want a robust Asia where people trust each other. I would like more Indonesians to travel for tourism to India. More Indians to come, not just to Bali, sit on the beach, the elites, but middle-class Indians come to the rest of the archipelago. Indonesians go all over. I'd like more Chinese. We need much more people-to-people interaction, scholars getting to know each other. We need to be teaching about Indonesia in China. We need much more of that inter-Asian knowledge. Okay, we should forget that the Japanese screwed up the term Pan-Asia. Okay, they made a mess of it. Yeah, they misused the idea of Pan-Asianism. The idea is not bad. It was there before Japanese imperialism. The idea goes back more than 100 years, long before Japanese imperialism. We have forgotten the idea. We don't know each other. We don't read each other. And this is the point I want to make to what you said. And from 1965 to almost today, Indonesia has isolated itself. Indonesia left the global conversation. You see, Bandung was never replicated. 2015, the 50-year celebration, there were world leaders here, but it wasn't Bandung. Who has read the final declaration of the 2015 meeting? You know, the final declaration says things like, we need more public-private partnership. It could have been written by the International Monetary Fund. It probably was. Yeah? It's a most meaningless declaration. Not like the Dasashila, which is meaningful, impactful. So we need to actually get out of this, this isolation of each other. Indonesia is the 4th largest country in the world. It should be central in the conversation. Yeah, we need to hear from Indonesian intellectuals. We need Indonesian musicians on the world stage. You need to be watching films produced in China and India and so on, not just Hollywood. Yeah? We need to be reading novels from each other. We need to learn about Iran. Yeah? We need that. I'm using the word need. It's nourishment for us. We learn about ourselves. It's bizarre that maybe in the 16th century, the Arabs that used to come and trade in Indonesia had a deep understanding of each other. The Yemeni traders that came to Indonesia, what a rich tradition of interaction. Why today is the first flight the elite wants to make? Why is it to the United States or to Europe? Why? Why go to holiday there? Yeah? Go into Asia. Discover our continent, and then go into Africa. A remarkable continent. New things are happening. Yeah, so when we say, okay, I get it, the Cold War, but we need to get that out of our heads. Get the fog out of our heads. And a lot of it is what today we were talking about, is to forget our inferiority complex. We are inferior to nobody. Yeah, we are ourselves. We are not inferior. What we do, how we live, how we decide to dress, it's not inferior. We are who we are. We should be proud of ourselves. We should be proud of our traditions. We should be proud of where we come from. Yeah? I mean, you should be proud of the fact that you won independence. That's something that should be cherished. Hatta, Sukarno, these people led an independence struggle. Sukarno's name should be crowned by us. We should be reading him. We should be reading more of Sukarno. If you're not reading Sukarno, you're not understanding the dynamism of modern Indonesia, frankly. You're not getting it. You should be reading the Buru Quartet. We don't need the Nobel Prize. We don't need the Nobel Prize. The greatest Indonesian novelist didn't get the Nobel Prize. We don't need the Nobel Prize. We need his books. His books are more important than the Nobel Prize. That's why I say we need to give our own prize. Yeah, we should create our own prizes. Why are we waiting for the Booker Prize, the this prize? We need to give our own prizes. We should give a tricontinental prize. Yeah, we give an annual tricontinental prize. Or we call it something nice like the banyan tree. Give it some name like that, a nice tree that, multiplies. That's not just one trunk, but many trunks. And we don't give the prize to one person. We give the prize to 5 people together. You see, because they are a voice together, not just one, but like the banyan tree, many. Yeah, we give that prize, we give the first prize from this stage in Jakarta next year. Bonnie, what do you say? The banyan tree prize.
Well, banyan tree pohon beringin loh, Bron.
Yeah, we'll debate then the tree.
Okay. In the spirit of learning from each other, Vijay, I was struck by your social media. You had this photo with kids, like Palestine and all that. Many people think of Palestine today to what Vietnam was in the 1960s and 70s for many young people, right? It is like a crystallization of struggle against imperialism. Of course, you have stories of suffering, despair, and all that, but you also have a very strong, a people who are resisting domination, all that. What do you make of that? The image of Palestinian struggle worldwide now, yeah, and caused by the latest event after October 7th. How is it? Is there a comparison to that? What Vietnam was in 1960s and 70s? What's your take on that?
Yeah, so it's a very good question. It's a very difficult question to enter into because you have to face a reality which is very ugly. So firstly, the Vietnam War was something else. I mean, I was we are about the same age. We were young at the time. I went to demonstrations in Calcutta. I was carried on shoulders. In my city, the road on which the US consulate and the British consulate, they were on the same road. It used to be called Harrington Street. During the war against the Vietnamese people, the government in Calcutta renamed it and they called it Ho Chi Minh Street. So the US consulate was on Ho Chi Minh Street during the war. And so the demonstrations were right at the head of Ho Chi Minh Street. They had to write on their stationery, US consulate, Ho Chi Minh Sarani, Calcutta, West Bengal. I mean, they had to, it was the official name. We experienced that the Vietnamese fought back. Half of Vietnam was independent. The Vietnamese declared independence in 1945, same time as the Indonesians declared independence. Indonesia could have had a war that went beyond 1948. I want you to think about this. Vietnam declares independence 1945, same time as Indonesia. Same time the former colonial comes back. France comes back and says, no, there's no independence. We are coming back. Vietnamese fought them, defeated them in 1954 in Dien Bien Phu. And then the United States takes over from the French to prosecute the war against the Vietnamese. In Indonesia, the Indonesians triumph in 1948. But the United States returns in 1965. It's actually a parallel story. It's a different kind of parallel. In Vietnam, the North fought back against heavy odds, took enormous casualties. But they fought. They developed a theory of guerrilla warfare. And they fought against the South Vietnamese army and the United States, mostly the United States, and the Australians and others. But in the North, they protected their leadership. They were able to maintain Ho Chi Minh alive, Ly Duan alive, Giap, General Giap alive. They maintained their leadership. They hid them. They were able to create a very good strategy for the war and so on. In Palestine, yes, it's true. Palestine galvanizes us. That day in Bandung, I was walking with a shirt from Chile which says Palestino, which is a football team in Chile. And people were yelling, "Free Palestine," when they saw it, from shops and so on. And when these kids saw, they got very excited. So it's true. We are heartsick about the genocide against Gaza, against the Palestinians. We are also heartsick about what the Israelis are doing in the West Bank. We feel terrible. We are mobilized. We are angry. We wear the kafia. We wear shirts. We wear the watermelon. We do whatever we can. We feel demoralized. We feel like we can't stop it. All these feelings are with us. We go on the street. We yell slogans. We tell the government, "You must do this." Why did you join the Board of Peace? Why did you join? We say these things. We feel demoralized. We feel activated, etc. Contradictory emotions. But you see, the Palestinians are not in the situation of the Vietnamese. Just a week ago, we commemorated the fact that the leader of the Palestinian resistance movement, Marwan Barghouti, has been in jail for 24 years. Anwar al-Sadat, not Anwar al-Sadat, Ahmad al-Sadat, the leader of the Popular Front for the Liberation of Palestine, has been in an Israeli jail for 24 years. These are the Ho Chi Minhs, the Giaps, the Ly Duans of the Palestinians. They have imprisoned all the leaders. If they don't imprison them, they kill them. Hamas leadership, they keep killing them. The Israelis have declared that every single Palestinian organization that believes in emancipation are terrorists. Human rights groups inside Palestine, Adamir, Al-Haq, research institutes, Bisan Center, the Palestinian Women's Union, the Palestinian Agricultural Workers Union, all declared terrorists. So the Israelis have actually tried to depoliticize what's happening in Palestine. So the difference between Vietnam and Palestine is the Vietnamese had a political strategy that they were able to mobilize against the United States. And so in 1975, they defeated the US. They were able to take Saigon. In Palestine, people are struggling in a disorganized fashion. They are fighting rearguard actions. They are trying to defend their homes against all odds, against settlers. They are trying to defend their olive trees. They are trying to defend their homes from bombs coming from the sky, American bombs, German bombs, etc. They don't have a way to go beyond resistance. Why? Because Israel has totally taken away their leadership. One of the most important things you can do in Indonesia is fight for the freedom of Palestinian political prisoners. We must demand that our governments take this up. If they call it the Board of Peace and they want a seat on the Board of Peace, we must give them a mandate. Even though we disagree with them going to the Board of Peace, if you are taking the seat, you must have a mandate from the Indonesian people. What should be your mandate? Demand the release of all Palestinian political prisoners as a precondition for any conversation. No conversation without their release. Why? Because the Palestinians need to have a seat at the table. How can the Palestinians have a seat at the table when Marwan Barghouti is being tortured every day by the Israelis in the jail? How can that happen? Who is going to represent the Palestinians? It's not Mahmoud Abbas. Mahmoud Abbas has no legitimacy in Palestine. The actual leadership is in prison. So what I would say is we need to focus our energy. We are saying end the genocide. Okay, tomorrow they'll stop bombing. But the Palestinians are still politically disorganized. Demand that their leaders be released. It's very different from Vietnam. They are in a much more perilous situation.
Great. I'd like to move to the question of agency, because like you mentioned, like what can actually do. And we began the conversation with the argument of clarity, the need for clarity and all that. And I think one of the things that we don't want is to become spectators of catastrophe, right? We don't just like want to witness what is going on in the world, we want to do something. You've been traveling a lot, yeah? You have like extensive conversation with different forms of movements. Can you tell us or share a little bit based on your experience, like what kind of organizations and political actions matter today in the context of the global crisis and all that?
Yeah, I mean, firstly, it is true that working people around the world are deeply, deeply disorganized. I mean, the systems we have of production of profit, that system is now so cleverly created working conditions where workers have a hard time organizing. Most workers are informal and Uberized. They are taking their orders from apps. And they don't even know who the other workers are who work for, let's say, a delivery company. Even when you work in a factory, you work on irregular shifts. So you don't have the understanding and trust of other workers on the shop floor. You're coming in at different shifts. You don't know when you are being called in. It's a very interesting form of working conditions now. They've thought this through. In factories in Indonesia, it's very difficult for workers to get to know each other. Very difficult. You're not allowed to talk to each other. Monitors walk up and down. I mean, it's become like a very much a prison environment. Very difficult to organize. But that doesn't mean people don't live together. Some of the smartest organizations organize people where they live. They organize people around issues of daily life. Water delivery, electricity, things like that. In Indonesia, the same thing is happening. There's a lot of organizing happening at the point of life, not the point of production. Still the working class. It's just that, what are you building power for? You're not building power when you organize people for electricity connection. That's not how you build power. What you're building is you're building people who are actually developing their own confidence to go back to workplaces and try to organize people. And you're beginning to see organizing of these Uberized workers starting to happen. People starting to go on strike. In Karnataka, in southern India, there is an IT workers union with thousands of workers. They are information technology workers. They are generally isolated, but they're getting the confidence to come together and to build unions and to start agitating and coming out into the public. And it's very important because part of our existence as humans, as you said, subject and agency, part of our existence as humans is to feel that we are not just being driven over on a road. We are not just the road, but we are able to walk on it. We are imprinting our personality on the land in which we live. We are not just working for somebody else. We are doing something, we're leaving a legacy behind. Humans want to leave a mark on the earth and then go. Why? Because humans have memory. We have memory. It's a unique thing. We don't think animals have memory in the way humans have memory. Because we want to write things. One of the people in charge of our conversation, Historia.id, yeah? We want to remember. We are historical beings in that sense. We want to leave. We want to have our children remember us. We want to leave a mark. We don't want to be anonymous. It's a very powerful feeling. So why should we create a social structure that minimizes the lives of hundreds of millions of people and says that you are an ant? You are an ant on the planet Earth. Some people leave a mark, the rest of you don't. Look, I admire people like Sukarno and Hatta, but they are names. Behind those names are tens of millions of people over the years who sacrificed to fight against colonialism. Every one of those people is embodied when we say the name Sukarno, because their hopes and dreams were vested in their leader. Their leader was their mirror. Fidel Castro is similar. Fidel Castro is not an extraordinary person. He may be, it's 100 years this year. But really, he was a mirror of all of us. Nehru was a mirror. Gandhi was a mirror. Gandhi couldn't have done this by himself. It was people vesting their subjectivity in a figure called Gandhi, saying, Gandhi, I am with you. You know how when we are in a movement in India, we say, I am with you. Somebody stands up and says, are you with me? And people say, I am with you. Yeah. And that phrase, I am with you, is a phrase saying my subjectivity is real. I am here. I am imprinting my destiny on the land. So when I travel to different places and I see people stamping their feet on the ground, I know that we are not finished. I was in Cuba recently, met the president of Cuba, Miguel Diaz-Canel Bermudez. I asked him, United States is pushing you, they want you out and so on. What is the Cuba going to do? You don't have electricity, we have rolling power cuts. He said, listen, we don't want to return back to colonialism. We don't want to return to be slaves. We don't want to be slaves. We would rather die than be slaves. You know, they have a phrase, patria o muerte, homeland or death. So do you. Merde ka ato mati. Merde ka ato mati. We don't want to be your slaves. Merde ka ato mati, patria o muerte. One is from Latin America, the other is from Indonesia. It's the same feeling. That's the agency we are looking for. I don't want to be pushed around. That's why when I look again at the Iranians, I think, my God, they are amazing. They just stand there, they go on the street, they say, you can kill me. The foreign minister said, two things he was asked. One, he was asked, are you afraid for your life? And he said, for what reason? Everybody dies. The real question is when. Everybody is going to die. The real question is when. Second thing he was asked, United States going to invade. How do you feel about that? He said, let them come. Let them come. We will face them. It's not a question of winning or losing. It's not arrogant. He is not being arrogant. He is not saying winning or losing. He is saying, I'm not going to run away. I'm here. I am putting my mark on my land. You kill me here where I put my mark. I'm not running.
It's a great way to turn now to the audience, our agents. So please feel free to ask questions. I will allow 3 questions first. Please raise your hand. 1, 2 in the front. Okay, 3. So 1, 2, 3. Can you help with the mic, please? Bisa tolong mic-nya? Ada yang tanya di belakang tadi. Tolong angkat tangan, Mas. Tuh.
Okay, thank you very much, Pak Hilmar and Vijay Prashad. My name is Gopang, the citizen of North Jakarta, living in the coastal, in the middle of climate crisis. So my question is the response from your conversations about long time struggling in the global south in Indonesia, talking about the crisis and lot of patriotic jargon, nationalistic like Merdeka or Die. But my question will focus on today resistance and the new possibilities. Is there any good example of resistance in the global south, in Indonesia, for example, in Africa, in Latin America, as part of the global south hemisphere? Is there any good resistance? Because we have so many internal conflict, like politicals, the difference of ideological. Is there any today resistance that we can follow? Yeah, that's the question. And do we have modality? We don't have a progressive party in Indonesia. We have a personal progressive politician like Triyana, but we don't have a progressive political party. I think it also happens in Africa and Latin America. Lots of progressive party did not participate due to the political problems, or they become oppositions. So what's our modality? Political party, grassroots movement, environmental grassroots movement, or do we have international leadership or political leaders that can unite a front line to be part of the resistance and doing hope or doing new possibilities or alternative? Thank you.
Just collect the questions first, ya. Bisa langsung tadi yang di depan ini.
Depan.
Ya. Kalau boleh lebih singkat, bisa lebih banyak yang nanya gitu ya.
Makasih Mas. We have, hi Vijay, about the production of knowledge in relation to Global South. We have decades studying about decolonization, post-colonialism, but I think it's, I don't know, I hear about reparation in Africa by a guy, he wrote a book, a guy named Kwesi, okay, you know, I mean it's interesting because it's moving the production of knowledge from academia and cultural reflective, yeah, into the sphere of more materialistic, economic, and it's possible more people based. And I am amazed because he can Africa, not just one country or two country, because that's the problem in Southeast Asia. We don't have any view, yeah. We should have a view of the South by Southeast. We are the Southeast. There's Philippines, there's Asia Latin, like Philippines, like Timor-Leste. There's Malaya. We all have the same experience, only by different colonizer. So I'm just asking if it is the reparation agenda based on the study of colonial surplus can be a new possibility for resistance in Southeast Asia.
Thank you. Lady in the front, please. And then after that, you. Yeah. Okay.
Halo, perkenalkan nama saya Widya, saya izin berbicara dalam bahasa Indonesia, jadi semoga Pak Hilmar, ya terima kasih. Terima kasih Pak Vijay untuk presentasinya yang sangat membara dan sangat memantik. Tadi saya menangkap ada beberapa poin tentang people to people interaction dan juga interaksi antar entitas non-negara dari satu bagian Global South ke bagian lain. Dan ini juga sesuatu yang mungkin sudah cukup lama mengusik benak saya gitu. Saya adalah seorang yang lahir di tahun 2000-an, jadi mungkin cara saya meng-approach politik juga sangat dipengaruhi oleh dinamika pasca reformasi. Dan salah satunya adalah percakapan tentang dekoloniality, itu sendiri kita seringkali saya dan mungkin rekan-rekan saya membaca gestur di generasi saya di mana kita ingin membayangkan sesuatu yang di luar kerangka kenegaraan gitu, kerangka negara bangsa, solidaritas di luar naungan negara bangsa. Dan ini juga sesuatu yang saya pernah mendengar ini dari salah seorang intelektual di Indonesia yang mengatakan bahwa salah satu kritik dia terhadap Bandung adalah keburu-buruannya untuk terinstitusionalisasi. Dan ini menurut saya juga sesuatu yang perlu kita pikirkan ulang gitu. Bagaimana ya kita membayangkan solidaritas global selatan, sebuah transnational solidarity yang tidak selalu bergantung pada entitas negara. Itu pertanyaan pertama. Dan pertanyaan kedua, di tengah krisis yang sebegitu mencekik ini, apakah solidaritas dengan bentuk yang seperti itu tuh masih punya tempat, masih punya harapan, masih punya kemungkinan untuk menang. Itu aja sih. Ya, terima kasih.
Maksudnya yang kedua bahwa
yang kedua tuh turunan dari pertanyaan pertama.
Ya, yang negara itu apakah masih punya harapan untuk?
Iya, masih punya harapan untuk ya.
Sebentar ya.
Hi Vijay, thank you for the lecture. My name is Reven, big fan. I'm from Bandung also. So I'll be quick with my question. As we are seeing the decline of the American hegemony, we are also seeing for the first time a power shift from a unipolar and truly global hegemony to whatever comes next, whether it is multipolar or whatever that is. What do you think would happen? Like, what is your best case scenario? What is your worst case scenario? And what is the implication for us who lives in the global south? Thank you very much again.
Oke, cukup dulu kali ya. Vijay, please.
Excellent, remarkable questions. Kwesi Pratt Jr. is a very close friend and comrade of ours, and we are republishing his book in South Africa, and I think maybe with either margin or GDN or both, we can do a Bhasha edition of his book, Reparations, which has a foreword by the President of Ghana, John Mahama, and in the edition we are doing, it will have an afterword by Professor Vern Shepherd from Trinidad and Tobago, who wrote the UN resolution on colonialism, which was tabled by the Ghana government in the UN recently. It's a very important issue to bring back the question of we have not forgotten. You see, we have not forgotten. We know. Because the question of colonialism is a question of memory and a question of resources. You see, every time I go to one of the European countries, I look around and I think, Ghana, India, it's everywhere. I was in Amsterdam recently with a young left-wing politician, Chris de Poog, from a political party called De Vonk, who's very anti-colonial, extremely anti-colonial. But I was walking around Amsterdam with him and I said, Indonesia, Suriname, Indonesia, Indonesia, Suriname, etc., etc. And by the way, Holland has colonies today. Aruba, Bonaire, Curaçao, ABC Islands in the Caribbean. They're still colonies. France has a colony in so-called French Guyana. They still have colonies today. Britain has colonies in the Caribbean today. Memory and resources. You stole our wealth. You invested it in your countries. Give it back. Reparations. Okay, we don't want the money back and then we write checks to everybody in Indonesia. No, forgive our debt. Cut the debt to zero. Give us technology. We want that. We don't want individual checks to people. That's not reparations. Our reparations is debt goes to zero. Our reparations is give us technology. Our reparations is build 2 universities for children in remote parts of Indonesia so that children from those remote parts can study science and technology, mathematics. That's reparations. Yeah, we are not asking for handouts one by one. We are not charity cases. Memory and resources. You tried to take away our memory, and you did take away our resources. We control our memory, or at least we try. We try to control our memory. But definitely we want some resources back. We are not indebted to you. We don't want to borrow from you. The money sitting in your bank is our money. We want it back for our development, which you stole for us from hundreds of years. It's not a joke, right? Enslaved people to grow coffee. It's not a joke. They didn't just come here and trade. They created a new kind of slavery. Brutal kind of slavery. They should be teaching it in their schools so that their young people grow up and understand why there are Indonesians living in the Netherlands. Indonesians aren't there in the Netherlands to ruin your society. You came here first. We just followed you. You told us to follow you. People from Suriname, they are not just there to create restaurants for the Dutch. They are there because of the colonial history. Yeah, memory and then resources. Both very important. See, the question of state-dominated or the question of whether it should be grassroots or it should be state and so on, we can't go back to the Bandung era for our lessons. Bandung era was different in this. When the leaders came to Bandung in 1955, they came as emissaries of mass movements. Jawaharlal Nehru was not just the Prime Minister of India. He didn't just win an election. He led a mass movement against colonialism. Even those who disagreed with him respected him. Today, our leaders just win elections. They are not really leaders. Sukarno was a leader of all the Indonesian people, even those who disagreed with his policies. He led them to independence. Gamal Abdel Nasser was everybody in Egypt's leader. It's a different era. We can't assemble our leaders today, Narendra Modi, and say, he's not the leader of the country in the same way. We live in a different time. We can't go backwards and say Bandung was state-centered. It wasn't. It was the mass movements against colonialism that came there. Okay, King Faisal was there from Saudi Arabia. Prince Sihanouk was there, but Prince Sihanouk, everybody wanted to kiss him. He was the most beautiful person at Bandung. He was known as the Prince of Bandung. 30 years old, beautiful looking, etc. Okay, every one of them were not mass leaders, but the main ones had led mass movements. Today, the situation is different. The scenario is different. Today, we are fighting in all fronts. It's not a question of choice, my friend. Let's choose this or choose that. We are fighting in all fronts. In Senegal, for instance, young tax collectors, people who worked in the tax administration, bureaucrats, became frustrated with the way in which multinational corporations were taking Senegal's gold and other minerals and metals and not paying tax. Mid-level tax inspectors and so on. They were frustrated that the rich were repatriating their wealth to France. So they started a movement for tax. Mass movement. People joined. The movement slogan became French go away. How did they go from tax? Because they talked about the issues of people. It became a political party. They won the election. Now they are the president and the prime minister. You take every opportunity, same in Sri Lanka. The JVP party, a party of the left, created a mass movement. They created a mass front, they won the election, they became president and prime minister. Our problem isn't how to get to power. Our problem today is what do you do when you get to power? We don't have an agenda. You come to power, you're stuck with the IMF. You have debt. You have to go back to the IMF because we are not fighting for reparation. We are not saying, we don't have the guts to say to the IMF, you go. We don't have the guts to say we are not going to pay our debts. Why should we pay our debts? These are debts from an earlier era. We don't have the guts to say that. We are stuck. We don't have an agenda. In our institute, one of the things we're working on is an agenda for development. What do you do the first 100 days that you're in power? How do you exist? You see, what should you do in Sri Lanka today? Why did they go back to the IMF? Senegal went back to the IMF, despite the fact that they won. We can win. You can win in Indonesia. You can win. We'll come back to the question of whether there's a political equation in any country. I'll come back to that. Anyway, you can actually win because you can mobilize mass sentiment. People are upset. Indonesia today, the objective conditions for something new exists. There is economic crisis. People are living a permanent, multi-generational economic crisis. They are frustrated. Nobody is speaking about their problems vocally, effectively, mass movements. See, you can't expect, in my opinion, a political party to build a mass movement. The mass movement has to arise from the social fabric. And it then is delivered to a political party that should be accountable to the mass sentiment. That's how it happens. There are contradictions in society. They produce spontaneous rebellions, mass movements. Mass movements get organized one way or the other, and they have an agenda they put on the table. Our problems have been is when mass movements have risen up, they've been suspicious of political parties because they feel the party is not accountable to them. So you have 2019, 2025, you have these movements, they go nowhere. Tahrir Square in Egypt, they go nowhere. You're not delivering yourself into a political instrument. You have to have political instruments willing to be accountable to the movement. So a relationship has to develop between a political instrument, whether it's electoral or not, and a movement. These are not two different things. They have to work together. But then the question is trust. They have to trust each other. They have to build trust, fundamental. And as more and more governments emerge that speak the language of the people, the world will start to balance properly. Right now, United States is weak, it's true. It's frustrated, it's trying to establish its own position and so on. But you can't expect our governments one by one to stand up to the US. It's a rare civilization that has the guts to say, destroy me or I win, like the Iranians. It's a rare situation. Most of us surrender. Look at what happened in Malaysia. I don't want to criticize the president of Malaysia, the prime minister of Malaysia. I don't want to be critical, but Anwar Ibrahim caved in front of Trump because you are isolated. You don't have a group together. The BRICS is not functioning politically. The Shanghai Cooperation are not functioning politically. They are trade bodies. They are not giving us political confidence. So when you say what comes next, what do you think comes next? I hope, I think, but I also hope. I think, but mainly I'm just hoping. I'm hoping that we build up political confidence globally. A country like Indonesia, fourth largest country in the world, does not have to buckle to the United States. You can tell the United States, sorry, you can't get my airspace. What am I getting for that? I'm not going to give up my right to airspace for nothing. Cancel my debt. Cancel my debt, maybe I'll allow your plane to land in one airport. At least I disagree with that arrangement. But at least you're getting something for it. Why are you giving yourself away for free? You don't have political confidence. President can't go in there with Trump and say, sorry, pal, let's make a deal, not just buckle to you. You wrote the book called Let's Make a Deal. How to make a deal. Let's make a deal. Why should I just get on my knees and kiss your ring? I'm not going to buckle to you. That political confidence is not there. For us to build a multilateral world, you need political confidence. To have political confidence, you have to have the will of the people behind you. To have the will of the people behind you, mass movements and political instruments have to develop closer relationships. Grassroots can change the world, but grassroots cannot necessarily construct a new world. The modern world is too complicated for us to go back to small is beautiful. It's too complicated to go back to the local. We must have an imagination of what the world is going to look like, extra local. And for that you need instruments. And one instrument that we have built as humans is the state. And we need to make the state democratic and accountable. That's the best that we can do right now. We don't have another instrument. We can't abandon the state. If we abandon the state, we leave ourselves defenseless against imperialism. If you don't have a state, then they don't even have to ask you for overfly rights. They just do it.
Thank you, Vijay. Second round of questions. Wow, so many hands now. Okay, we'll start one from that side, one from the middle here. Oh, Vijay, you make a choice, please.
One in the middle and one in the back.
One in the back?
One in the back.
Okay. Can you help with the mic, please? Microphone.
Can I go now?
Yeah.
Okay, my name is Aditya. I'm running...
Where are you?
Here.
Ah, okay.
Okay. My name is Aditya. I'm running a homeless progressive media called MPROC. My question is regarding your prescription of we should build a mass movement that is connected to the political instrument. And also, you also mentioned about how in the past, in history, like people don't always agree with each other. People don't always agree with their leaders, but they respect them. And that became a strength in building that South-to-South solidarity in Bandung. But my question is now regarding building that grassroots mass movement and having a connection with the political institution. In the case of Indonesia, how are we supposed to do that? Because like, for instance, when we're talking about, making Indonesia great again, our current president has been saying the same rhetorics too, right? I mean, like talking about we need to be a great nation. Our president is saying that over and over again, but I don't know if he actually means it or if it's just like a rhetoric that he's saying to gain popularity, right? He also saying internationally in the last year's May Day, we don't know if he actually stands with the working class or not. So my question is how are we supposed to deal with that? Because in the international platform, we don't know what he's doing because he's joining the BOP, but he's also siding with BRICS. Are we supposed to just, okay, you're doing your best, we're with you, just do your best, or should we just keep being critical towards him? That's my question.
One in the center. Yeah, please. You're on the back standing. Terus Mbak tadi? Yeah, okay.
Hello, quick question. Where do you think China plays in this? Because you mentioned UN, and do you think China has the confidence? And then I have a little anecdote. I own a very tiny independent bookstore, and when people come to our store and ask for Asian books, and then we hand them Indian literature, no one accepts. So yeah, I guess it's a wake-up call for the room. So everyone just wants to read Japanese and Korean. So yeah, Thanks.
Mbak, silakan.
Halo, perkenalkan nama saya Citra Lestari dari Universitas Setiabudi Rangkas Bitung. Saya izin bertanya, mohon maaf dicampur dengan bahasa Indonesia. Why is access to education in developing countries still uneven? Dan bagaimana cara kita anak muda melawan atau menyuarakan ketidakadilan dan ketidakmerataan itu? Terima kasih.
Yeah, maybe that's the first question to answer. Why is it uneven? The answer is capitalism. Because in a way, we have allowed so much of human life to be made into a commodity, to be bought and sold. In my opinion, I would argue that education, healthcare, and so on should not be commodities. We should not be having to buy medical care. We should, as a society, create medical care. Our common wealth should go into building transportation, building medical care, and building institutions of higher learning. Access is uneven in our world today because we have made education in most places a way to make a profit. That companies or other entities start colleges and they charge fees. And then even public institutions start to charge fees because we stop funding them like they were supposed to be funded. Access might always be uneven. That might always be uneven for different reasons. You know, there may be a good teacher teaching here and you want that class, but the class is full. So you have to be in another class with a teacher who's not as good. That's also a kind of uneven access. There are some normal uneven accesses that we learn to deal with. But the access to education because you can't pay fees, that's inexcusable. In India, for instance, the highest form of bankruptcy, the highest number of people who declare bankruptcy is because they can't pay their medical bills. Yeah? So medical bankruptcy is a huge problem. That's crazy. We are all going to fall ill. It's pretty much inevitable. Why should our illness bankrupt our families? Why can't we socially take care of, share the cost of illness? So in my opinion, the access question is a question of money. It's not a question of education. We have enough intelligent people to teach our young. We need more colleges, more schools. In fact, I would say spend more time in school. Learn more. And when people get older and retire, we should have colleges for the elderly. So they can come and they can read new things and read new books together and discuss things so they don't suffer from the illness of loneliness. Did you know that almost 1 billion people in the world suffer from an illness called loneliness? It's a UN study. And a lot of them are elderly people and the disabled. Why can't we build universities for the elderly to come back and study? Not just returning education classes to make money, but actually big institutions where you can get some sort of degree in things where you don't have to worry about your career. Because guess what? I've retired. So now I can just read literature and poetry and learn a musical instrument and my mind stays fresh. So I believe fundamentally in the access to education. We need to put more resources into it. I mean, you asked a question about Indonesia, a how-to question. That's not for me. I can't answer the how-to question. Right, Bonnie? How can I fix that answer? But I can say a few observations from other countries. I mean, one thing is very important to not misunderstand. I am not saying that, for instance, Narendra Modi of India is my leader. We live in a different situation. If I was alive in 1955 in India, I would say that I don't agree with Nehru on a lot of things. But he is my leader because he led our country to freedom. We were part of the freedom movement. Narendra Modi didn't lead me anywhere. He just won an election. I disagree fundamentally with his policies. I don't look at him as a leader. I actually am frustrated by his role as the Prime Minister last 10 years. So we live in a different situation. Just because somebody wins an election doesn't make them our leader. The interesting question to ask is, why is it in India or in Indonesia, mass movements haven't created leaders who then enter political instruments and continue to lead the mass movement into the parliament? Well, what is in India recently, we had a massive farmers' struggle. And then in Madhya Pradesh, the farmer leader Amra Ram surprised everybody. In Rajasthan, everybody was surprised when Amra Ram won the seat and went to parliament. And in parliament to fight for the farmers' issues. Very rare. That's partly because there's become a suspicion growing between mass movements and political parties. This is a suspicion, in my opinion, and this is really an opinion. I don't know Indonesia that well, but it's a suspicion for most of the global south, that mass movements or social movements came under the sway of a certain NGO idea that was promoted by the West. That was a kind of anti-politics idea. You just keep doing your mass movements, you fight for water access, but don't bother with politics. Politics is corrupt. This actually demobilizes our society. Our mass movement leaders need to lead the people into parliament and not just have a political party delegate people to enter parliament. You have to see if the political instruments that exist in your society are capable of taking the mass movement leader into parliament. That's a challenge for your political instruments. But it's also a challenge for the mass movement. You can't sit out of the struggle to build political laws and so on that make society function. You have to be in the parliament to fight it out. You can't ignore that area. It's a very irresponsible thing for our social movements and political movements to sit out of the electoral battle. They mustn't. They must join it, engage it, struggle there. In India, the left is very engaged in the electoral battle. Not because we think we can win everywhere and so on, but because we want to change the terms of the conversation. We want to prevent the right from suffocating the conversation into religious disputes, into issues of bring capital in and give it the farming sector. And so we want to fight them outside parliament and inside parliament. And inside parliament, we want the leaders of the people to come from the movement. So in that sense, I have never accepted the idea that these things are separate. Mass movements or social movements, political parties, it's crazy to think of them as separate. We are on the same field of battle. We are in different spheres of struggle. We must learn to build trust and accountability with each other and not feel betrayed. That's a process. That doesn't happen with a handshake. That's a process. It's a struggle itself. It's a struggle. I mean, you come to the question of China. China is an extraordinary story, the role that it has played. But the Chinese are quite aware of their situation in the world. See, when a communist party comes to power in a country, especially in a poor country, it has to do at least three things. And the order of precedence of these three things is complicated. The first thing it must do is to immediately improve the conditions of life of the people. If you don't immediately make gains for the people, they're going to say, what kind of left-wing organization are you? We are still dying of hunger. You have to immediately tackle hunger but you don't have the factories to produce flour. You have to immediately tackle illiteracy, but you don't have the classrooms for school. You don't have the brick factories to make the classrooms. You don't have the chalk factory to make the chalk. You don't have the factory to make the blackboards. So you have to address the immediate needs of the people, but then you have to immediately industrialize with no resources, because guess what? They stole our resources and gave no reparations. And the Chinese were devastated by World War II. 20-some million Chinese people fought to defeat Japanese fascism. In a sense, they weakened the Japanese so that Indonesia was not destroyed even more by Japanese imperialism. The Chinese pinned them down. 27 million Chinese died. Communists and patriots died to defend us against fascism. 25, 28 million Soviet citizens died to defeat fascism. 80% of the German army was destroyed by the Soviets. And then the Allies came in. If you watch a Western movie about this, you get a totally wrong perspective. Yeah, as if the Americans came and saved the day. 27 million Soviet citizens or something died. Similar number of Chinese patriots and communists. They faced a very difficult situation in 1949. You don't have industrialization, it's all destroyed, and yet you have to immediately solve the problems of the people. And then the third problem, you have to defend yourself from attack. You have to send the army out to defend the Korean people. You have to immediately create a deterrent, an atom bomb, to prevent yourself from being a victim of invasion. Three things at the same time: solve the people's problems, industrialize the country, protect yourself from invasion. The Chinese entire mentality today was created in the immediate aftermath of the Chinese Revolution. Solve the problem of the people. That continues till today. You read any Xi Jinping speech, the primary issue is to solve the problem of the Chinese people. Abolish poverty. Recently he wrote an article we should be reading. Everybody must read. And by the way, I agree with him. All of you, at night, before you go to sleep, put your phone in another room. Read a book. You'll have a better night's sleep. You won't have night terrors. Read books. Xi Jinping said on Thursday, read books. He's worried about the Chinese people, first thing. Second thing, industrialize. Now they are working on new productive forces. Going to advance beyond factories. I've visited these dark factories, all robots. New productive forces. And number three, defend the country from attack. They are worried the United States might launch hypersonic cruise missiles into China, so they built them first. They have built a military to defend their country. They have not built a military to defend Iran. Three things, three aspects that China develops after the Chinese Revolution. Solve the problems of the people, industrialize your country, and defend your country. That still exists today. China is still in that mentality. There are some elements of China breaking out of that. When they come out there and say, you can't do this to Iran. This is very new attitude by the Chinese government. When they come and make statements saying the attack on Iran is illegal. We haven't heard this for a very long time. But China is not an aggressive power. It's still doing these three things, defending its country. Now, obviously, there are border disputes. What's the difference between India's border dispute with Pakistan and China's border dispute with Japan? These are old disputes. It doesn't show that China is more aggressive. These are old disputes that predate the Chinese Communist Party's revolution. At some point, one should say to everybody in Asia, settle your problems. I already mentioned it. It's not like Indonesia is immune from that. You have your own problems about aggression. Your own problems about aggression. And you might say, but we are not being aggressive. Well, so do the Chinese. These are problems that we face in Asia. It's not unique to China. So China right now is playing a big role economically. They are not playing a big role politically. Remember, they set up RCEP, trading bloc. Slowly, Shanghai Cooperation Organization is getting political. But it's not a political leader of Asia yet. It's merely on the economic terrain in both Asia and Africa. I am waiting for the moment when India and China can settle their political problems, their historical political problems. When India and China settle their political problems, we will see much more political activity coming from Asia. Japan needs to realize that it's an Asian country. Japan needs to tone down its nationalism. It needs to come back to earth. It should stop being an aircraft carrier of the United States. They should relax a little bit. This has gone on for too many years. This Shinzo Abe legacy that came with his grandfather, who was a war criminal, but also Prime Minister of Japan, and now with the new Prime Minister, this is a ridiculous political attitude in Japan. They need to cool it a little bit. We need to see a more reasonable Japan emerge. Yeah? They are part of Asia. They need to make an agreement with the rest of the continent. Indonesia needs to be more vocal. Maybe an Indonesian president can call for an Asian summit. Maybe in the next round of the presidential election, we'll have a president in Indonesia that can call for a summit of Asia. Maybe hold it in a different city. Maybe hold it in somewhere in the eastern area where it's towards the Pacific Ocean. Have a summit of Asia. Call all the leaders of Asia to sit down at the table and discuss what is the Asian agenda. Africa has an African Union. Latin America has the Organization of American States. Asia has nothing. Can we make an Asian Union, a place to sit down and talk and resolve our disputes? Why doesn't Indonesia lead it? 75th anniversary of Bandung. Give you 4 more years, Bonnie. 4 more years.
Well, thank you, Vijay. This is a great moment to actually end the conversation. Unless there is a burning question in the room. Yeah? One burning question. It should be good. Please.
Wait a minute, there's a lot of pressure on you. Are you sure it's a burning question?
Sure. To be honest, I wanted to add a note, which was that although there's a bit of reluctance to admit sometimes, I think, there is a movement-based party and that is a political apparatus in the country that represents the interests of the working class. I would say that the Labour Party still is capable of representing such interests. And I think that because of the fear and doubts with engaging in politics, especially ones that are trying to wrestle power in terms of like parliaments and in elections, I think there's a hesitation in actually participating in that. So I would like to know what you think is a good advice to give to the labor movement in general, as well as the Labour Party in ways that we can actually engage masses and in ways that we can actually build a strong party that is accountable to the masses itself. Thank you.
That is a burning question. It is a burning question of our times. What should political instruments such as that do? So let me speak in generalities. And let me not speak about your country. I'm not a citizen of Indonesia. I'm not capable of giving you advice that's electoral. You understand? I can't make an endorsement. That would be ridiculous. But what I would say is in our countries, including India and so on, in our countries, as a consequence both of military rule in Indonesia, but the emergency in India and military rule in Pakistan and military rule in Bangladesh, as a consequence of that period, and then as a consequence even more of the period of neoliberalism, privatization, globalization, etc. As a consequence of all that, liberalism in our societies died. Our elites are not national elites. They don't have a national project. They have become, in a sense, cultivators of their own wealth. They don't really care about Indonesia. That sense of patriotism, which might have existed in an earlier elite, has vanished. Liberalism has vanished. You can hear powerful people disdain the poor, say that, it's their own fault. They are drug addicts. They are terrorists. They are this. They are riffraff. That's the end of liberalism. You've privatized, in a sense, success. And you've made failure into an issue of personal choice. You fail because you made bad choices. This is the death of liberalism. The center has died in most of our societies. We have gone polarized to the right and immense demoralization. I don't say right and left. Right and immense demoralization. Which is why in our societies, I would say, whatever you believe, you are a Marxist, you are a form your groups, read books, argue with each other. But you have to build mass unity into the center left. The center left is the space that has to be rebuilt. It is vital. You see, what happens in our societies is people go to the left and then they marginalize themselves. They make themselves increasingly irrelevant. I don't say don't create groups. Create the groups. Have the debates and discussions. But your political task is not self-marginalization. Your political task is to build the center left, to challenge the right on the terrain of the center left, to bring the working class back into politics, into active, agency-driven politics. So that's why I said yours is the burning question. Because what happens to people like you and I, and I'm speaking on your behalf, who get motivated to the left, is that we have a tendency to become critical and to allow critique to become our standard. I have fought for years with myself to stop sitting on the mountain of critique and criticizing everybody alone from there. I have said, go down to the ground. Go down and form an agenda, common agenda. 10 Ashila, 15 Ashila, 20 Ashila, whatever it may be. Yeah? Form common agendas. Go back to the primary questions, hunger, etc. Work with the mass movements. Build the intellectual capacity of the mass movements no longer to isolate themselves. Bring them back onto the field of politics. Build on the battlefield that is open to us, which is the center left. So I'm not naming any organizations. And it doesn't matter what center left group you are building. Even there, build unity among the center left. No point 3 center left parties killing each other off while the right takes the benefit. The unity of forces against the right is imperative. Because the right cannot solve the problems of our society. They know that. That's why they say absurd things. You see, you are complaining, somebody's president, they say this, that, and the other. Let them say whatever they say. Don't get bent out of shape by their crazy comments. They said that they are against, they are May Day, whatever. Doesn't matter. They will do whatever they do. Trump is incoherent. Relax. What are you doing? Your job is not to monitor Trump's statements. Your job is to build the confidence of people to enter into politics. And the door that's open for us is the field of the center left. Take it. Take it. Take it now.
Well, Vijay, thank you. Thank you very much. A big round of applause again for Vijay Prashad.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you so much, sir. Please stay, don't go anywhere. Please stay on the stage because next I would like to invite Bapak Boni Triyana, Bapak Todung Mulya Lubis, Bapak Usman Hamid, Bapak Roni Talapesi, Ibu Ita Fatia Nadia, Profesor Sulis, Bapak Marzuki Darusman, Bapak Sukidi, Profesor Ikrar Nusa Bakti, Profesor Asfi Warman Adam, Bapak Jales Wari Pramoda Wardani, Ibu Jales Wari Pramoda Wardani, Bapak Igusti Agung Wesaka Puja, Bapak Helmi Fauzi, Bapak Andi Ahdian, dan Bapak Ibu Dolorosa Sinaga untuk dapat naik ke atas panggung. Beserta Bapak Amiruddin El Rahab untuk dapat naik ke atas panggung dan kita berfoto bersama terlebih dahulu. Sebelumnya, thank you so much for the discussion, very insightful Mr. Vijay Prashad and Bapak Hilmar Farid. Sekali lagi izin saya mengundang Bapak Ibu tamu undangan yang terhormat yang sudah hadir di tengah-tengah kita pada sore hari ini. Dan teman-teman juga jangan pergi kemana-mana, karena kita akan berfoto bersama sebelum kita mengakhiri acara pada hari ini. Izin Bapak Ibu disilahkan. Boleh kita berikan tepuk tangan yang meriah teman-teman semuanya. Untuk Bapak Ibu tamu undangan terhormat yang telah hadir di tengah-tengah kita menyempatkan waktunya untuk sama-sama belajar bersama kita semuanya pada sore hari yang berbahagia ini. Kepada tim dokumentasi disilakan untuk bersiap. Disilakan Bapak Ibu untuk merapatkan barisan. Sudah siap tim dokumentasi? Izin saya akan memandu jalannya sesi foto bersama. Hitung mundur, boleh disiapkan senyum terbaiknya. 1, 2, 3, cheese. One more time. 1, 2, 3. Boleh Bapak Ibu selanjutnya kita membelakangi audiens. Teman-teman, boleh disilakan untuk berdiri di hadapan audiens di bawah panggung. Mohon izin Bapak Ibu semuanya dan kepada tim media disilakan untuk naik ke atas panggung untuk mengabadikan dari atas. Kepada teman-teman disilakan untuk bangkit berdiri dari tempat duduknya. Mari kita abadikan momen berbahagia pada hari ini. Silakan. Should I? Okay, thank you so much, sir. Wait a minute. Sebentar teman-teman semuanya. I actually sprained my ankle before. Sorry, izin ya Bapak, maaf. Oke. Izin ya Pak, saya di sebelah Pak. Teman-teman semuanya bersiap, boleh disiapkan senyum terbaiknya. 1, 2, 3. Boleh gaya bebas nggak Pak? Boleh, teman-teman yang di belakang boleh. Izin, silakan, izin. Metal juga nggak apa-apa teman-teman. Ya, biar seru aja. 1, 2, 3. Boleh. Kiri ya Pak. Perjuangan. Diangkat, dikepal tangan sebelah kirinya teman-teman semuanya. In 3, 2, 1. Boleh kita tepuk tangan teman-teman semuanya. Thank you so much. We hope this discussion has given you new ideas and a deeper understanding of the Bandung spirit and its relevance today. Teman-teman semuanya, sekali lagi terima kasih banyak kepada para narasumber dan moderator, kepada teman-teman yang sudah hadir. Acara pada hari ini tentu tidak akan berlangsung dengan baik tanpa adanya dukungan dari Wakil Gubernur DKI Jakarta Bapak Rano Karno, Megawati Institute, Margin Kiri, GDN Press, Historia.id, and we invite you to join the book signing session with Vijay Prashad, guided by Ayu Alfia Janas. Please proceed to the design area. Disilakan untuk melakukan book signing session di luar area ballroom. Once again, my name is Habsya Arafa, representing the entire organizing team. On behalf of the team, I would like to say goodbye and thank you for your presence. Have a wonderful day and see you again.